If we're asking ourselves this morning, how exactly do I serve God? How exactly do I live in the world? It is summed up in this passage. You see, scholars say that there were over 600 laws and rules that the Jewish people had to follow at this point. And so the religious scholars, they would get around and they say, which one of these is the most important? Some had one opinion, others had another. And they said, you know how we're going to trip this Jesus guy up? We're going to ask him to answer this question. Now, surely this will trip him up, because if he says one commandment is important than the others, he must be saying that these others are not as important. He says the greatest commandment is this. The greatest commandment is to love God with everything that you are. Not to love God partially, not to love God just on Sundays, not to just love God on your Facebook or your Snapchat or your Instagram, but to love God fully. He says that is the greatest commandment. But then he says something that they weren't expecting. They thought they had got him, but Jesus comes out swinging. He says, with that said, there's a second greatest commandment that is just like this one. You must love others as yourself. You must love your neighbor. You must love the people around you as much as you love yourself. Now, here's the key. He does not say love people who are like yourself. He says love people as yourself. Love the Roman soldier, love the Gentile. For you and I, that's love the white person, love the Democrat, love the Republican, love the people who are not just like me. It says love your neighbor. And he says, let me tell you something else, since you've been trying to trip me up. All the rules, all the laws, all the commandments, they all go back to these two things. If you love God and you love others, you are fulfilling all the commandments. It goes like this. When he says, love God, if you love God, you'll have no other gods before the one true God. If you love God, you'll keep the Sabbath. If you love God, you won't take his name in vain. And he says, if you love others, guess what? You won't kill others. You won't bear false witness. You won't murder. You won't be a mean neighbor. If you just do these two things, you will be fulfilling all the commandments. He adds some new insight into the mix. And he says that everything that God has said in his word comes back to these two commandments. You love God and you love others.